The vote in the Draken Warspire was 312-2, and Overlord Kael'thor did not wait for the second count. He stood at the center of the chamber, his ceremonial battle cloak catching the amber light that poured down from the vaulted ceiling, and he said the words that 43 conquered systems had heard before their flags came down. His claws tapped once against the iron rail of the speaker's dais, a single rhythmic beat, and the assembled lords of the Dominion rose as one. Only two figures remained seated. Elder Morvath, whose species had been mapping the galactic rim since before the Draken had learned to build ships, and a small Kovani observer named Commander Zara, who was not entitled to vote but was entitled to watch. Zara watched. She pressed her recording device against her palm and kept her antennae still, the way she had trained herself to do in chambers, where the wrong twitch could be logged as bias. On her screen, the motion was already processing. Sector 7 Cray Reach Annex pending. Elder Morvath did not rise when the others rose. He sat with his hands folded on the table in front of him, and he looked at Kael'thor the way a person looks at a thing they have already calculated. "You were told," Morvath said, "to stay away from that border." Kael'thor's claws stopped tapping. By whom? By everyone who has been paying attention for the last 300 years. The chamber did not laugh. It was not that kind of chamber. But a low sound moved through the assembled lords, something between amusement and contempt, and Kael'thor let it run its course before he answered. 300 years, he said. And in those 300 years, what have the humans done? They have built some stations. They have signed some treaties. They have complained, very politely, to councils that do not concern themselves with frontier disputes. He spread his claws wide. They are primitives with paperwork. Morvath said nothing. He unfolded his hands, picked up the single document on the table in front of him, and set it down again. It was 214 pages. He had read all of them. He did not believe Kael'thor had read any of them. "Very well," Morvath said. "Then go, the part that still keeps me up at night." "That comes later." 48 hours earlier, Admiral Isara Chen had been holding a mug of cold tea. It was a ceramic mug, chipped along the rim, a hairline crack in the blue glaze where her daughter had dropped it against the counter 3 months after giving it to her 12 years ago. Chen had kept it anyway. She kept everything her daughter gave her, and she drank cold tea, and she read reports at 600 when the station was quiet, and the recycled air smelled faintly of ion filters and burnt circuitry. Aegis Station at dawn, if a 9-kilometer orbital ring above a moon could be said to have a dawn, had a particular quality of light. The main corridor lights ran at 60% until 0700, and the blue-green curve of the moon below filled the observation panels with something that was almost sunrise. Almost, Lieutenant Commander Kenji Sato had told her once, in his 3rd week on the station, that it looked like home. She had said, "Good. That's the point." Sato was 34 and had been in the fleet for 18 years. He wore a set of dog tags that belonged to his grandfather, who had died in the 2nd Territorial Skirmish along the Grey Reach 31 years ago. The tags were engraved with 47 names, the names of every human killed in direct territorial incidents in the 30-odd years since the Veyron Accords. 47 names. In 3 centuries of holding a line against the Draken Dominion, against the Relvar Compact, against the 6 smaller powers who had tested the boundary and retreated, the total human cost was 47 lives. Sato wore them because his grandfather had told him to. His grandfather had told him, "You carry the names so you don't forget what the patience cost." Chen knew this. She knew it the way she knew most things about the people under her command. Quietly, without making it a thing she acknowledged out loud. At 0611, her console chimed. She set down the mug without looking at it. "Report," she said. The voice that answered was Captain Elena Vasquez, Reclamation Protocol Coordinator, 15 years in the fleet, and one of the most rehearsed human beings on the station. "Admiral. The Grey Reach perimeter is showing movement. Draken signatures bearing 7x3. I'm counting 847 inbound. Time to boundary, 11 hours at their current rate." Chen picked up the mug again. The tea was cold. She drank it. "Run me the Veyron confirmation," she said. "Already queued, ma'am. Article 17. Vasquez said it the way other people say, of course. Any incursion across a defined territorial boundary constitutes an act of aggression, subject to full defensive response. We have a clean mandate, and their declaration of intent, filed this morning Galactic Standard. They're calling it an annexation survey. Chen looked at the moon below the station. The light was turning gold now. Real or not real enough? Denied, she said. Vasquez was quiet for exactly 1 second. Then, 1,247 simulations, ma'am. I've been ready. Her voice held something under the words. Not excitement, not quite. Something like a person exhaling after holding their breath for a very long time. I know you have, Chen said. Get me Sato and Commander Chen on the bridge in 20 minutes. And Vasquez? Ma'am, don't run. Wouldn't dream of it. The bridge of Aegis Station was 40 meters wide and looked out through a band of shielded glass at 180 degrees of open space. It smelled of old coffee, and the particular tang of recycled air that only aging filtration systems produce, a smell Sato had stopped noticing in year 3, and had started noticing again in year 12, when his daughter had visited and asked what the strange smell was. Behind her, Commander David Chen, no relation, a coincidence that had produced exactly one joke in 26 years of service, and that joke had been made by Commander Chen himself, once, and never repeated, came in carrying a tablet and not making eye contact with anyone. He was thinking about that, about his daughter's face when she asked young enough that she hadn't learned not to ask. When Admiral Chen came through the door at exactly 0631, she carried the mug. He had expected the mug, he always expected the mug, which was his way of signaling that he had already run the numbers, and the numbers were what they were. 847, Admiral Chen said without preamble. Current heading projects them across the reach boundary in 11 hours. I've filed our response with the Council. The incursion notice is logged. Article 17 is active, and the Reclamation Pro-Uncle is standing by for authorization. Standing by. Vasquez confirmed from her station. She did not turn around. Chen sat at the command chair. Not the dramatic center of the room throne that Draken war spires were fitted with. A chair with one armrest that didn't lock into position properly. A problem that had been logged on the maintenance system for 4 years and had never been fixed because Chen kept marking it low priority. She had once told Sato she marked it low priority because she liked having something to fix her elbow against when she needed to think. She was fixing her elbow against it now. The question they'll ask the Council, she said, is whether we had advance intelligence of their intentions and failed to escalate appropriately. Sato looked up. Did we? We had 27 years of intelligence on their intentions. We filed 17 formal diplomatic notices. We received 12 responses, all classified under Frontier Petition non-urgent. She looked at her mug. The Council has been very clear that humanity is a non-threatening primitive species with paperwork, Commander Chen's tablet chimed. He looked at it and said nothing. Commander, Chen said. The Draken formation is consistent with their standard annexation pattern, he said. 847 ships. Heavy and light mix. They're not bringing the fast strike configuration. They're bringing the march-in configuration. They don't think we'll fight, Sato said. They don't think we can fight, Commander Chen said. There's a difference. The march-in configuration assumes you stop. It doesn't account for what happens if you don't. Good, Chen said. That's the point. She set the mug on the console, precisely in the spot it always sat. There was a faint ring on the surface where years of placement had worn the finish thin. She opened the channel to the Draken flagship. The response came in 40 seconds. Overlord Kael'thor's image filled the main screen. Armored carapace, ceremonial cloak, the 12 conquest scars along the ridge of his jaw. He had the expression of a person who was confident they were about to have a very short conversation. Chen looked at him. She did not adjust anything. She did not lean forward. She held her hands in her lap. Overlord, she said, you are crossing into human-claimed territory. This is your formal notice under Article 17 of the Veyron Accords. You have 1 hour to reverse course. Kael'thor was quiet for a moment. Then, with something that was close to patience but wasn't, he said, Admiral, we have filed an annexation survey request with the Galactic Council. The Grey Reach sector has been reclassified as disputed. Our presence here is denied, Chen said. Kael'thor stopped. Your survey request was denied, she said. Logged with the Council at 6:03 this morning, the Grey Reach is not disputed territory. Article 17 is clear. You have 1 hour. His claws tapped once against his armrest. And if we continue... Chen looked at him the way Morveth had looked at him in the War Spire. 2 days ago, across 14 light years she couldn't have known about. The look of a person who has already calculated. Then we will stop you, she said. She closed the channel. Sato was watching her. She could feel it without turning around. Sato, ma'am. The dog tags, how many names? He touched them without thinking. 47. 47, she repeated. She picked up the mug. The tea was still cold. She drank it anyway. In 300 years, that's what this line has cost us. 47 names. She set the mug down. I'd like that number to stay where it is. Yes, ma'am. Good. She looked back at the screen, at the 8047 signatures moving in formation across the gray reach. Now, let's see if 1,247 simulations were enough. The 11 hours passed the way long waits always do on a military station, in small, specific ways that had nothing to do with the thing everyone was waiting for. Vasquez ran a calibration check on the Reclamation Pro-Occultals targeting array. She had run the same check 1,247 times in simulation. This time she ran it twice. She did not explain why. She did not need to. Commander Chen updated his logistics projections, which no one had asked him to do, and everyone was glad he did. He kept a photograph of his daughter on the corner of his console, propped against a spare power coupling. She was 8 in the photograph, gap-toothed, holding up a fish she had caught at a lake outside Osaka. He had not looked at the photograph in 4 hours. That was how Sato knew he was paying attention. Sato himself sat at tactical and watched the 847 signatures move. They held formation. Heavy ships at the center, lights at the edge, the textbook march-in pattern of a fleet that had never needed a different one. He thought about his grandfather, who had died along the Gray Reach 31 years ago in an incident the Council had classified as a frontier skirmish. He thought about the 46 other names on the tags. He touched them once, through his uniform, and then he stopped. At 1:30:42, the Draken fleet reduced speed. They're scanning, Vasquez said. For what? Sato asked. For us? She did not look up from her display. They expect to find a defensive line. Ships, stations, something they can count. A pause. They won't. The Draken formation held for 19 minutes at reduced speed. They were good at this patient, methodical, the kind of patience that came from 3,400 years of winning. They swept the sector 3 times. They pinged the boundary with active sonar. They sent a scout at the northern edge, which turned back without incident. They think we have nothing, Sato said. They think we have nothing visible, Admiral Chen said, from the command chair. She had not moved in 4 hours. The mug sat on the console. The tea in it was long past cold. There's a difference. The Draken fleet crossed the boundary at 14:01 station time. No alarm sounded on the bridge of Aegis Station. Chen had specifically disabled the crossing alarm 3 years ago, on the grounds that when the moment came, everyone on the bridge would already know. She had been right. Vasquez's hand moved to her panel without being told. Sato straightened in his chair. Commander Chen set his tablet face down on his console for the first time since 6031. Article 17 is active, Vasquez said. Authorization required for Reclamation Protocol. Authorized, Chen said. The word landed quiet. It was not a dramatic word. It was the same word she used when she authorized maintenance schedules and supply manifests. That was the point. Protocol active, Vasquez said. Acquiring targets. On the tactical display, 316 small green marks appeared across the map of the Gray Reach, distributed across the 847 Draken signatures like a field of quiet stars. Sato looked at them. He had seen this display in simulation so many times that the sight of it felt, for a moment, slightly wrong, like seeing a place you had only ever dreamed about and finding it exactly as you dreamed it. Full acquisition in 4 minutes, Vasquez said. 4 minutes, Chen said. She picked up the mug. She looked into it, apparently confirming that it was empty, and set it back down. Sato. Time since crossing. 18 minutes, ma'am. And they haven't fired? They haven't found anything to fire at. She nodded, very slightly. The Draken fleet was now 0.6 light minutes inside the boundary. Still in march and formation, still scanning. The heavy ships were broadcasting on the standard Dominion command frequency, a continuous status signal that Vasquez had been intercepting and translating since 0800. The content had not changed in 18 minutes. No contact, no resistance, continuing advance. On the Galactic Council observation platform, 12 light minutes from the boundary, Commander Zara was watching the same frequency. She had her recording device pressed against her palm. She had stopped writing notes 14 minutes ago, because nothing she was trained to write notes about was happening. What was happening was the absence of what should have been happening. She pressed her antennae flat against her skull and kept them there. Acquisition completed at 1419, 316 confirmed targets, Vasquez said. Primary systems, propulsion arrays, bridge modules. Non-lethal spread, full coverage. She stopped. Then, Admiral, I want to say something. Go ahead. In 1,247 simulations, I never got a perfect spread. She looked at her display. We have a perfect spread. Chen said nothing for a moment. Then, don't tell me that. It makes me nervous. It was the closest thing to a joke she had made in 11 hours. Sato felt something in the bridge shift. Not relax, exactly, but acknowledged that they were human beings having a moment before a thing happened. First wave on your authorization, Vasquez said. Targeting propulsion and weapons simultaneously. 212 ships. Fire, Chen said. No one on the bridge heard anything. Space does not carry sound. But on the tactical display, 212 of the 847 red signatures went dark, not extinguished, just changed, the red icons flickering to amber to show disabled, not destroyed. The Draken formation did not respond for 22 seconds. 22 seconds in which Sato watched the remaining ships continue forward, still in formation, still broadcasting no contact, no resistance. Then the formation shattered. Not panicked. The Draken were too disciplined for panic in the first instant, but sudden, the clean break of a pattern interrupted. Ships began to pull wide, to scan, to call to each other on frequencies that Vasquez's team was already transcribing. The transcription came through Sato's earpiece in real time. Weapons offline. Engine response negative on 212 units. Source unidentified. Source unidentified. Second wave, Chen said. 215 ships. Engines only. Firing, Vasquez said. Another 215 amber icons. The Draken fleet was now divided between the 212 disabled forward ships and the remaining 420 trying to form a defensive line around them. Which was the right instinct, which was also not going to help them. They're good, Sato said, watching the formation shift. He meant it without admiration and without contempt, the clean professional acknowledgement of one military person watching another. They're excellent, Chen said. They just haven't been in a fight they didn't design the terms of. She looked at the screen. Vasquez. The flagship, identified. Port midship, moving to rearguard position. Standard extraction pattern for command assets. Leave it for last. Yes, ma'am. The engagement ran for 8 minutes. 8 minutes from first wave to cessation. They tried broadcasting surrender flags on 3 different frequencies simultaneously, which Vasquez flagged and Chen said, not yet, they need to stop moving first. They tried, finally, simply stopping, holding position, no advance. During that time, the 420 remaining Draken ships attempted 4 different response configurations. They tried a tight defensive cluster, which gave the protocol better target density. They tried a dispersed spread, which isolated their flagships. No withdrawal, and that was when Chen said, last wave, everything remaining. The final 420 icons went amber in 11 seconds. The display showed 847 amber signatures in the gray reach sector, adrift, engines dead, weapons offline, every ship intact, every crew alive. 0 destroyed, 0 human casualties. The bridge of Aegis Station was quiet. Vasquez let out a long, controlled breath. She did not cheer. None of them cheered. Commander Chen picked up his tablet and began running post-engagement logs, because that was what there was to do next. Sato looked at his display for a long moment, and then he reached up and touched the dog tags through his uniform again, and this time he left his hand there. Chen picked up the mug. She turned it in her hands once, looking at the hairline crack along the rim. Total time, she said. 8 minutes, 11 seconds from first wave to cessation, Vasquez said. From boundary crossing to cessation, 26 minutes, 3 seconds. Any Draken casualties? We're running crew scans now. Early return shows hull integrity on all 847. No life sign irregularities detected. A pause. They're fine, ma'am. We were very precise. Good, Chen said. I want that confirmed before we open any channels. Admiral, it was Sato. He had turned from his display. The flagship is broadcasting. What frequency? Council emergency standard. They're not broadcasting to us. He looked at her, and someone make fresh tea. There was a half-second pause, the kind that happens when military people process an order that is also not quite an order. And then someone, Sato thought it might have been one of the junior officers near the door. They're calling the council. She set the mug down. The ring on the console surface caught it exactly. Of course they are, she said. Let them. We'll want a record of what they say. She stood. Get me confirmation on the crew scans. Move toward the small galley off the corridor. Chen looked at the display. 847 amber icons. The Grey Reach, which had been a border for 300 years, was very quiet now. What did the Dominion call this sector? She said. A frontier petition, Commander Chen said, without looking up from his tablet. Non-urgent, she said nothing. She looked at the display a little longer. Outside the station, the blue-green moon turned slowly in its orbit. The same as it had for the 47 years Aegis station had been above it. What none of them knew yet, what Zara, watching from the council platform 12 light minutes away, had only begun to understand as she played her recording back and counted the amber icons one by one, was that the Galactic Council's emergency channel had already received 17 new messages in the last 6 minutes, all from different species. The light through the observation panels was fading towards something that was almost evening, the slow, quiet kind, the kind that follows a long day of waiting. All variations of the same question, what just happened in the Grey Reach? On the council observation platform, Zara played the recording back a third time. Not because she had missed something, because she needed to be certain she had not. The footage ran for just under 27 minutes. It opened with the Draken fleet crossing the boundary in march-in formation, 847 signatures, moving in the clean, unhurried way of a force that had done this before. It showed 18 minutes of empty space, the Draken scanning, broadcasting, finding nothing. It showed the moment the first wave hit, 212 ships going dark simultaneously, the formation breaking, the frantic reconfiguration that followed. It showed the second wave, the third, the final 11 seconds. And then it showed 847 ships, adrift and intact in the silence of the Grey Reach. She had been trained to document military engagements for the Council's historical archive. She had covered 6 conflicts in 9 years. She had seen decisive victories before. She had never seen anything that looked like this. She pressed her antennae flat and kept them there. The 17th Council message was still open on her secondary screen. It was from Senior Arbiter Voss of the Relvar Compact, one of the oldest species on the Council, one of the ones who had been in the chamber when the Viron Accords were first drafted. His message was 4 words long. Is this footage real? Zara typed back, yes. Overlord Kael'thor sat in the command throne of his war carrier, the same throne he had sat in when the 43rd system fell, when the Relvar border collapsed. Then she sat still and waited for whatever happened next. What happened next on the Draken flagship was nothing. When the Council had formally recognized the Dominion's expansion as a fait accompli, and he looked at the tactical display and said nothing. The display showed 847 amber icons, his fleet adrift. Engines dead, weapons offline, every ship intact. That last part was the thing he kept returning to. Every ship intact. His tactician, Kavath, stood 2 meters behind him and to his left. Kavath was 340 years old and had served 3 overlords. He had learned early in his career when to speak and when to stand still. He was standing still now, but not because he had nothing to say. He had understood what was happening from the moment the first wave hit, understood it in the way you understand something when the pieces you have been ignoring for a very long time suddenly arrange themselves. He had been ignoring them for 280 years. Specifically, 280 years ago, Elder Morvath had filed a formal advisory with the Dominion's Expansion Council. Kavath had read it at the time. It had been 214 pages. He had read all of them. He had filed a counter-advisory recommending the Dominion pause its Grey Reach survey. He stood behind Kael'thor now and said nothing, because there was nothing left to say that the display was not already saying, and because Kael'thor was going to have to come to his own understanding in his own time. He had been overruled, and because 847 amber icons spoke with a clarity that Kavath had spent 280 years failing to speak with himself. The Council channel was open on a secondary screen. 17 messages, now 18, now 20. Kael'thor had not looked at the channel. He was still looking at the tactical display. "Who authorized this protocol?" he said, finally. Kveith said, "The humans did. It's in the Veyron Accords. Article 17. Kael'thor's claws tapped once. "I know what Article 17 says." "Then you know," Kabath said, "that they have been legally entitled to this response for 300 years. A long pause. The ship hummed around them, the low, specific sound of a vessel running on minimal power, systems rerouted, trying to assess damage that wasn't there. The Dominion engineers were already working through the disabled cascade. It would take days to restore full capability. "Maybe longer. They disabled 847 ships," Kael'thor said, "in 8 minutes. Yes, without a single loss. Yes, in a sector we classified as 'he stopped, non-threatening primitives with paperwork,'" Kael'thor said. He said it without any particular inflection. Yes. The silence that followed was the specific kind that falls when a man who has been certain for 1,800 years encounters the first thing that makes him uncertain. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the silence of a framework coming apart at a joint that had always been there. Kael'thor looked at the display for a long time. Then he said, "Open a channel to the human station." On Aegis Station, the alert came through at the same moment that the fresh tea did. One of the junior officers, Sato never learned her name, somehow, which bothered him later, had brought a pot from the galley and set it on the console near the command chair. Chen had not asked for it to be brought to the console. She had asked for it to be made. The officer had made a judgment call, and Chen had not corrected her, which meant the pot sat next to the mug with the cracked glaze and steamed quietly while Vasquez said, "Ma'am, the Draken flagship is opening a channel. To us! To us!" Chen looked at the pot of tea. She did not pour any. She straightened slightly in the chair. Not dramatically, just the small adjustment of a person who is about to be on a screen. On Maine, the flagship's bridge was darker than she had expected. Emergency lighting, she realized they had rerouted power. Kael'thor filled the screen the same way he had filled it 8 hours ago when he had been certain. The carapace was the same. The cloak was the same. The 12 conquest scars along his jaw were the same. His claws were still. That was the difference. His claws, which had tapped against every armrest and rail she had seen him near, were perfectly still. She had not expected that. She had expected anger, or demands, or the particular kind of formal language that powerful people use when they need to disguise what has just happened to them. She had not expected stillness. He looked at her for a moment. On the tactical display at the edge of her screen, Sato could see the 847 amber icons, still adrift, and he could see something else, a small new detail that had appeared in the last few minutes. Then he said, "How long have you had the protocol?" 300 years, Chen said, "and in that time we updated it many times." She paused. "The core has not changed." Another silence. Which was that several of the Draken ships had begun broadcasting on the Council Emergency Channel directly. Not through the flagship. Directly, individual captains reporting in, trying to reach someone with authority to tell them what had happened. That had never been in the simulations. Sato did not mention it. He logged it, and he kept it, and he waited. "You knew we were coming," Kael'thor said. "It was not quite a question." "We knew someone would come," Chen said. "Eventually." "You were prepared." "Yes, for this." "Yes." His claws remained still. He looked at her with the expression of a person trying to locate the place where his understanding had gone wrong and finding that it was very far back. "You," he said, "are primitives. By some measures," she said. "By others, we've been the most patient military force in this sector for 3 centuries. She let that sit. "You mistake competence for luck." His carapace did not move. Something behind his eyes did. Chen reached for the tea. She poured a cup. Not because she was thirsty, not because she was performing anything, but because she had been awake since the 06th, and it was now past 210 and the tea was hot and she wanted it. She lifted the cup and drank. Then she set it down and she looked at Kael'thor and she said, "You should have stayed on your side of the line." 9 words. The channel stayed open for 4 more seconds. Long enough for Kavath, standing behind Kael'thor, to look directly at the screen, not at Chen, but at something just past her. Some point in the middle distance, and give a very small nod, the kind of nod that is not agreement and is not defeat. The kind that means, "I know, I've known. I'm sorry it took this long." Then the channel closed on the Council observation platform. Zara had been watching the secondary feed. The open diplomatic channel. Audio only with her recording device pressed flat against her palm. She heard the 9 words. She had been expecting them, or something like them, ever since she had counted the 847 amber icons. But hearing them was different from expecting them. Hearing them, she understood something she had not quite formulated before. The humans had not won a battle today. They had executed a plan. There was a difference. Battles could be lucky, and luck ran out. Plans 300 years in the making were something else. Plans 300 years in the making were a statement about what a species was. She pulled up the Council's active registry on her screen. Under Humanity, Threat Classification, the current entry read, Non-threatening primitive. Border disputes, minor. Council attention level, low. She highlighted the field. She did not change it. She did not have the authority to change it. But she opened a new document, attached the full 27 minutes of footage, attached the audio of the 9-word transmission, and wrote 1 line of accompanying text. Recommend immediate reclassification review. She sent it to all 40 council members simultaneously. Then she sat back and pressed her antennae flat against her skull and waited to see what 40 people who had been wrong about the same thing for 300 years would do when they found out. The first response came in under 3 minutes. It was from Senior Arbiter Voss, the same one who had asked if her footage was real. It said, confirmed receipt. Emergency session called for 0900 Galactic Standard. And then, because Voss was 9,000 years old and had seen a great many things in that time, he added 1 more line. I will note that Elder Morvath predicted this. The record should reflect that. Zara stared at the message for a long moment. She thought about the War Spire. She thought about the 214-page document sitting on the table in front of Morvath, and the way he had set it down again, quietly, after Kael'thor said, then go. She thought about the 2 who had not stood when the rest stood. She added Voss's message to her file. She added a note. Elder Morvath's advisory, originally filed 280 years prior. Dismissed at time of filing. Recommend inclusion in reclassification brief. Outside the platform's observation window, the gray reach was very still. The 847 ships drifted in their amber silence. In a few days, the Dominion's engineers would restore power to the fleet, 1 ship at a time, and they would limp back across the boundary in the same march-in formation they had arrived in, just slower. The Council would receive crew manifests. The repatriation process would begin. None of it had been what anyone expected the 44th attempted annexation to look like. On Aegis Station, Sato was still looking at the detail he had not mentioned, not the 8047 amber icons, not the flagship channel. The other thing, the individual Draken captains broadcasting directly to the Council, bypassing their overlord, trying to reach someone who could explain what had just happened to them. That was not in the Dominion's protocols. The Dominion did not do that. The Dominion had a chain of command that was 3,400 years old and had never, to Sato's knowledge, been bypassed by individual captains in an active engagement. He logged it, he flagged it, he thought about it for a long time. Then he got up from his station and walked to where Admiral Chen was sitting, and he said quietly, "Ma'am, I need to show you something." She looked at his tablet. She read the flag transmissions, 17 captains, all within the last 30 minutes, all sending variations of the same message to the Council emergency channel. Not demanding anything. Not threatening anything. Just asking, in the formal language of a species that had conquered 43 systems and had never needed to ask before. What are the terms? Chen looked at the transmissions for a long time. Then she handed the tablet back to Sato and said nothing. What does it mean? Sato asked. It means, she said slowly, that 847 ships worth of Draken officers just watched their empire's certainty end and decided that the person they wanted to talk to was not their overlord. Sato absorbed that. That's... Yes, she said. It is. Sato looked at the tablet in his hand for a moment after Chen handed it back. 17 Draken captains, not the overlord, not KV. Captains, the people who had been in the ships when the waves hit, who had watched their weapons go dark and decided for the first time in the Dominion's history that the chain of command was not who they wanted to talk to. He set the tablet down and logged the transmissions into the official engagement record. That was the job. 3 hours later, Admiral Chen was still on the bridge. At 2347, she looked up. Sato. The captain's transmissions. Still open on Council emergency channel, ma'am. What did they ask for? He pulled it up. Terms of engagement cessation, repatriation request, and one of them asked for a copy of the Veyron Accords. Article 17 in full, Chen said. Send it. Ma'am? They asked. We answer. She looked back at her screen. Kael'thor never read it, but they will. Sato pulled up the file and transmitted it to all 17 open channels. 214 pages, going out at 235:1 station time. He logged that too. The council session opened at 09900 Galactic Standard. Zara sent a direct feed to Chen's secondary screen without being asked. What the council did in 4 hours: received the footage, received the engagement log, received Morvath's original advisory from 280 years ago with a note from Senior Arbiter Voss that it should have been acted on when it was filed. Then they spent 3 hours and 40 minutes deciding what to do with all of it. Commander Chen read the formal statement first. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Admiral, read it to me. He read it. The Council acknowledged human territorial integrity under the Veyron Accords. The annex petition was formally denied. Morvath's advisory was acknowledged as correct. Humanity's threat classification was under review, effective immediately. The bridge was quiet. Then Vasquez's second, Lieutenant Okafor, said, systemic error in threat assessment. Like he needed to hear it again. That's what it was, Sato said. He was not angry, just tired and accurate. Chen read the statement twice. She sat with it. Outside, the moon was coming back around to the light side. The observation panels were filling with blue-green again, the same color as 0600 yesterday, before the call came. She thought about her daughter. She thought about the morning the mug was dropped, and the apology, and her own voice saying, "It's fine, I'll keep it." She thought about 47 names and what they had been waiting for. She reached for the mug, turned it once in her hands, set it down. Sato, ma'am. The 3W debrief, we have 47 minutes. She stood. I'm going to make more tea. We're going to need tea. Vasquez was at the station entrance in 30 seconds. She looked at Chen. She looked at the mug. Something moved in her face, not quite a smile, but the thing that happens around the eyes when a person hears the right sentence at the right time. Yes, ma'am, she said quietly. Sato stayed at his station. He took the dog tags in his hand and held them. Here was the thing he had never said aloud. For 11 years, since his grandfather had pressed them into his hand in a hospital in Osaka and said, "You carry the names," he had believed two things he hadn't known were connected. The first, those 47 people had died for something. The second, he would probably never know if that was true. He knew now. The engagement log at 14:01 to 14:09 station time existed. 8 minutes, 8:47 ships, 0 casualties. It was in the record. It would be in the archive for as long as the archive held. The 47 names were in the record too, had always been. He set the tags against his chest and let them rest there, and he was quiet for a while, and the moon came up blue-green in the panels, and the bridge hummed with the low sound of a station that had been waiting a very long time and had finally been allowed to stop. At 12 to 47 station time, Kvath authorized power restoration on the Draken flagship. Kael'thor had not eaten or spoken in 16 hours. His claws had not tapped once. Kvath made the call. He would get these ships home. He would also do something he had wanted to do for 280 years, file a note alongside his original suppressed advisory. He wrote it simply. The advisory was correct. The recommendation was not followed. The outcome was as described. He filed it at 12:51 and said nothing to anyone. At 12:59, Chen came back with 2 mugs of tea. She set one on Sato's console without comment. He looked at it. She had already moved to the command chair, holding the original mug in both hands, the chipped one, the cracked one, and she looked at the observation panels. Sato picked up his mug. Station issue, no history, just a mug. The tea was hot and slightly bitter, steeped a little too long. He drank it anyway. Outside, the gray reach held its silence. The same silence it had kept for 300 years. The same silence it would keep tomorrow. The stars did not rearrange themselves. The boundary did not move. The mug in Chen's hands caught the light from the panels and held it, the blue-green glow of the moon bending into the chipped rim, sitting in the hairline crack, steady.